Welcome and good morning to Mike Ferry TV, the week of March 11th. Okay, I have a confession to make to all of the wonderful people that attended the production retreat about 6 weeks ago in Las Vegas. We collected several hundred questions that the audience prepared. They were looking for answers from me. I took and put them in one of my 3 briefcases, put it next to my desk, and forgot to look at it. So this morning, I pulled out that briefcase looking for something else, found the questions. So for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be answering some of the more common questions that I think apply to almost everybody in real estate today. So we're going to have some fun. I'm going to answer 6 questions today, 6 questions next week, 6 questions the next week, and 6 more. Hopefully they'll be enlightening you to list and sell more homes. First of all, remember, here we are in the end of the first week in March. The market is improving nationwide. There's a lot of reasons why the market's improving. If you're not doing as well as you want, let's get your head back on straight. Let's get your activities where they belong. Get you back to work. Okay, so question number 1. What are the top 2 or 3 things I can do to keep thinking bigger in terms of my business and my production? Thinking big is a learned process. Some people, maybe one of you, was born thinking at a real big, high scale. Most of us were not. We have to learn how to think big. It's a learned process. It's like being creative is a learned process. You can learn to be creative. You can learn to be thinking big. You can learn to be enthusiastic. You can learn to be energetic. You can learn to be disciplined. You can learn to be committed. These are all learned things. And I think a lot of people, understandably so, that they may not have any experience in these, think that this is some kind of a magical, tap me on the head and I'm going to become a big thinker. So the first thing I recommend all the time to people that want to think big is you have to understand the importance of reading and studying people in all phases of life that have done more than you're doing. So, for example, for myself, to help myself think bigger as a younger man, I would go to the library and virtually every week I would select 2 or 3 books, which you can now get audiobooks as well as obviously you can get books to read. You can get books on your iPad. So there's many, many ways of getting good information to you. And I would pick 2 or 3 books. In many cases, people I hadn't heard of, but I was intrigued by the title. And the title would then cause me to buy the book, and I'd read the book about somebody, whether it be in sports or in business or in medicine, any area where they were doing something extraordinary. I would read about them, I would study them to see how that would apply to me. So number 1 is to read books. Number 2, if you want to be a big thinking person, you have to take the time to go outside of your comfort zone and start meeting people that are doing something more than you're doing. I took a class when I was 21 years old. In the first week of the class, the instructor said we had to go meet somebody that was very successful in the community. And we had to come back after interviewing and talking to that person and share what we learned. Well, it was an incredibly difficult thing for me to do because I was so incredibly shy at age 21. So as a result, I met probably the most successful man in Orange County, California at the time. It took me virtually days of calling and calling before I got an appointment. He finally granted me 15 minutes. I got there. I had some questions prepared to ask. He spent several hours with me. His name was Walter Knott of Knott's Berry Farm. So here's what I want you to think about. Exposure to people that do something different than you do causes you to think bigger. Get out of the confinement of your own life. Get out of the confinement of how you think. Question number 2. This is a fun one. What do you see as the most common hang-ups or obstacles in agents that want to increase, say, from 25 to 30 deals a year to, say, 70 to 80 deals a year? With the average sales price having been fully restored in most of North America between 2012 and 2018, the average commission check jumped dramatically. With the demand agents place on the brokerage industry for getting paid higher commissions for something that we do, which is list and sell a home, our commission checks have increased dramatically, okay? So if you say to yourself, what are my hang-ups? The first question I would say to this person if he was sitting in front of me is, where does your business come from? Is it listing sold or buyer-controlled sales? Because to move from, say, 30 to 40 deals to 70 to 80, working with buyers only, is an enormous challenge in terms of the time you take. However, to move from 30 to 40 to 70, 80 as a strong listing agent, where 75, 80% of your business comes from listing sold, is a much easier path to follow. So the first thing I'm going to say is determine where your business came from. Second is determine the size of your database. Third, determine how much business comes out of your database and how excited you get working inside your database. And then fourth, of course, is to say to yourself, what other methods of meeting people can I put into effect and into play? Am I really working my database? Am I calling for sale by owners? Am I knocking on doors around my listings? The only way to get through the hang-up or obstacle is to put yourself in front of people that could potentially do something. Anybody here could take 50 plus listings a year. I'm convinced of that. However, it's your exposure to people and exposure to ideas that makes it happen. Question number 3, regarding the Mike Ferry listing plan of action. The 18 steps I can take to get a home sold. When I do read it to the seller, should I do it before the presentation or after? Okay. If you're using a sales plan, if you're using a marketing plan for your seller to follow, which is nothing more than your commitment to the seller on how to get the home sold, you should have a copy of that plan in your pre-listing package. Now, if you take the scripts we offer you, and hopefully you've downloaded, you've practiced, you've rehearsed, you're learning those scripts, if you've really studied the listing presentation, probably 90% of the time, if you're doing it with energy, enthusiasm, intensity, and you're looking them in the eye and you're asking questions and you're answering their questions and you're paying attention to what they say, 90% of the time, you're not going to get to the plan of action because they're going to list with you because of the questions you've asked prior to the plan of action. So if the plan of action is used, it's used generally towards the end of the presentation when a seller will come up with this kind of a question. You know, Mike, we like everything you've said so far. Makes a lot of sense. However, we have a question. What exactly are you going to do to get the home sold? We like the fact that you're so enthusiastic and energetic. Well, what are you going to do? Well, something has gone wrong in the presentation to this point if they ask the question. So you take your plan of action out at that point and you start reading through the step-by-step process you follow. We offer a plan of action to use. Many of you use it. Most of you are smartly going to take that plan of action and take out the steps you're not comfortable or don't want to do and add the steps you're going to do. Question 4. If I were to rate myself on a scale from 1 to 10 on each of the 21 steps in the Mike Ferry sales system, what should take priority in what should be done first? The lower scores to improve or the higher scores to get higher? Okay, here's the answer. Neither one of what you just said and what you asked of me. If you score yourself on the 21-point plan of action, the first 10 steps are production-based. The last 11 steps are transactional-based, helping you understand how to develop and grow your transactions. Step 1 is, of course, time management. Step 2, working prospecting. Step 3, working your database. Step 4, lead follow-up. Step 5, pre-qualifying, etc. All right, what I want you to do is rate yourself on the first 10 steps because they're the ones that create transactions. They're the ones that create listings, create sales, and create income. Once you've rated yourself on the first 10, then you say to yourself, okay, is my listing presentation strong enough to get me a 70% closing ratio? Is my time management strong enough to get me the number of presentations I need to go on and make per week and per month? So once you have established and rated yourself on points 1 through 10, then honestly say, is that particular step strong enough to get me to the overall goal? And if it's not, then work on that step. Simple enough. Question number 5. In today's society, very common, it's almost impossible not to meet people that will have language patterns very different from my own. How can I learn to communicate better with their language pattern when theirs and mine are so different? Well, if I go into Vancouver, British Columbia, Seattle, Washington, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Dallas, Phoenix, Arizona, I go into Miami Beach, Washington, D.C., New York, almost any major city, one of the wonderful things about North America is the wonderful groupings of people that have come from abroad, and we have them everywhere. Now, we're going to be listing and selling homes for them. So obviously, the answer to the question, in my opinion, is we can't learn 27 languages. We can't learn 27 accents. What we can do is ask better questions, ask them very slowly, and then very intently listen to the answer. And feel comfortable sitting with the seller and saying, help me understand what you're trying to accomplish. Help me understand what you're saying to me. I want to be of service to you, but I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So learning to speak slowly, learning to ask questions, or in essence follow the script, learning to really hone in on what they're saying. We can all work with people that have heavy accents that are different than our own. It's hard, but it has to be done because we have multiple different accents in our societies today. Question number 6, is there an advantage when working with buyers? Now listen carefully to the question. To putting the buyer in our own car versus having the buyer follow us to the property in their own car? Well, the truth is you should always stay with your buyer prospect, period, end of conversation. The hard part of that, of course, is they will say, well, why don't we just follow you? And sometimes you're going to submit to that depending on the strength of how they say it. Or they have a big van and they got 6 kids and you're driving, a 2-door Audi. So sometimes it's impossible, and I understand that. The challenge with them following you is very simple. You show them a property and you have 3 you've picked out. And as you're driving to number 2, you look in your rearview mirror, and as you're making a left turn, they make a right turn and they're gone. The purpose of having them with you is to control not only the fact that they can't get away, obviously, but also to control the conversation about the house they've just seen, to see what has to be done to get them to buy it and or what changes the next house has that will help them. So 6 questions, hopefully 6 answers that make some sense to you. We're going to continue this for a couple of weeks. Thanks for being part of Mike Ferry TV. Okay, if you have not gone online and looked at our newest service called the Mike Ferry Vault, you need to go online and look at it. It is probably, it's 43 years of work that I've put into summarization in the vault. Look at the vault. Be with us again next week. Have a great week. Thank you.